The sky was burning with fire and smoke as the human soldier pushed forward through the ruins. His armor was scratched and covered in dust, but his steps were steady. Around him, the battlefield shook with explosions, and the air carried the sharp smell of burnt metal and fear. He had been ordered to hold the eastern corridor, but the moment he heard the faint cry, he changed direction. Through the haze, he saw a small alien child stumbling between fallen walls. The child's eyes were wide, filled with terror, and its tiny hands trembled as if holding on to the last bit of life. The soldier ran toward the child, ignoring the blasts around him. A plasma bolt flew past his shoulder, scorching the ground. He slid to a stop beside the child, shielding it with his armored body. The child clung to him without hesitation, as if it knew this stranger was its only chance. To live, from the smoke ahead, movement caught his eye. Figures approached, fast and armed, their weapons glowing in the firelight. He tightened his grip on the child and raised his rifle, ready to fight anyone who tried to harm it. His heart beat hard, not from fear, but from the decision he had already made. He would not let go. The attackers were not human. Their armor had the curved plates of the alien army that had been striking his forces for days. Their leader barked something in a language he did not understand, but the meaning was clear. They wanted the child. His answer came in the form of a warning shot that cracked against the rubble. Before the enemy could advance, a sudden voice cut through the chaos. It was soft yet sharp, and it carried weight that made the armed aliens pause. From the shadows stepped a young alien woman, her long dark hair catching the glow of the fire. Cat-like ears twitched atop her head, and her eyes locked on the child with a mix of shock and relief. She stepped closer, her gaze flicking to the human soldier. Her hands rose, showing she was not armed. In that moment, the explosion seemed to fade, leaving only the sound of the child's soft whimpering. The soldier's instincts screamed to stay alert, but the way she looked at the child told him this was not an enemy like the rest. The alien woman's voice broke slightly as she spoke again, this time in broken human speech. "He is my son." Her words were heavy, trembling with emotion. The soldier did not lower his guard, but the child turned its head, reaching out toward her. For a brief second, the chaos of war seemed to hold its breath. The soldier kept his weapon ready even as the young alien woman stepped closer. Her eyes were fixed on the child, and there was no hatred in them, only a desperate fear for someone she clearly loved. The child squirmed in his arms, torn between the safety of his grip and the pull toward his mother. The enemy soldiers looked uneasy. Their leader glanced at the woman, his posture stiff. She spoke to him quickly in her own language, her voice sharp with command. The leader's eyes narrowed, but he gave a short signal, and the others lowered their weapons slightly. The tension in the air remained heavy, like a bowstring drawn too tight. The soldier did not move at first. Trust was a dangerous thing here. His helmet scanner picked up no obvious threat from her, but the battlefield had taught him not to rely on that. Yet the child's small hand reached toward the woman again, and the sound of his soft cry broke. Through the walls the soldier kept around his heart. He crouched low, still holding the child, and slowly shifted so the boy could see his mother better. The woman's breath hitched, and she knelt in front of them. Her long hair fell forward, and he noticed how a strand brushed across his face, hiding his ears from the view of the others. It was a small thing, but it made him feel strangely shielded. "Why is your army chasing this child?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Her gaze flicked to his face, and she hesitated. "Not army traitors," she replied in halting human speech. "They want him for power, for war." Her words were broken, but her meaning was sharp enough to cut through the noise of distant gunfire. The soldier's jaw tightened. He knew the kind of power people killed for, and it rarely ended well for the innocent. His grip on the child tightened slightly, earning him a grateful nod from the mother. "Then you and I have the same problem," he said. "We need to get out of here before they circle back." She didn't answer with words, only a quick glance toward a side alley choked with smoke. Without another word, she moved ahead, clearly expecting him to follow. The soldier kept the child close to his chest as he moved after her, his rifle sweeping side to side. Every shadow seemed alive with danger. They passed crumbling walls, shattered vehicles, and the bodies of both humans and aliens, reminders of how quickly life was destroyed in war. A sudden noise made him spin. A group of armed figures emerged from the ruins to their left, their weapons already raising. Before he could fire, the woman stepped in front of him, her stance wide, and her voice rang out in her own tongue. Her words were sharp like whips, carrying the authority of someone who was used to being obeyed. The intruders froze, their hesitation buying the soldier enough time to take control of the moment. He moved forward, the child's small arms gripping his neck tightly. The mother walked beside him now, her head held high despite the ash and dirt streaking her skin. "We must go to safe place," she said, her voice softer now but still edged with urgency. "You saved my son, I owe you more than life." Her eyes met his for a brief heartbeat, and he saw the promise there. It was not just gratitude. It was something far stronger. The narrow alley twisted between piles of broken stone and scorched metal. The human soldier kept his steps light, but quick, every sense alert for movement. The alien mother walked ahead, glancing back often to make sure he and the child were still close. The boy's grip on his armor had loosened, but his eyes never left his mother. They reached a collapsed wall that blocked the street. Smoke curled from the rubble, and the air smelled of burned wires and fuel. The woman crouched low, scanning the gap for danger. Her cat-like ears twitched at every sound. The soldier could tell she had training. She moved with care, not like a civilian, but like someone who had walked through battle before. When she gave a short hand signal, he understood it was clear to move. He passed the child carefully to her, so he could climb over first. His boots crunched on loose stone as he pulled himself onto the top of the rubble. From that higher point, he could see the city in ruins, pockets of fire glowing in the fading daylight. In the distance, figures moved between buildings, but none seemed close enough to be an immediate threat. She handed the child back up to him before climbing over herself. For a moment, she stumbled on the uneven stones, and he reached down to pull her up. Her hair brushed across his arm, covering his face again, just enough to hide him from the eyes of those who might still be watching. It felt intentional, as if she knew exactly what she was doing. They continued on until the streets grew quieter. The sound of battle was farther away now, though the distant thunder of heavy weapons still rumbled through the ground. The boy rested his head on the soldier's shoulder, his breathing slow but steady. The mother's steps softened, her pace no longer the urgent sprint it had been minutes ago. "Why are they after him?" the soldier asked again. Her gaze stayed forward as she answered, "He carries what they want, something in blood from his father." The words were heavy with meaning, but she gave no more detail. He didn't press her. If there was one thing he knew from years in uniform, it was that some truths only came when trust was earned. They reached a half-collapsed shelter hidden between two larger structures. She slipped inside first, checking the corners with quick, practiced movements. Once she was sure it was safe, she nodded for him to follow. The soldier stepped into the dim space, the cool air a relief after the heat outside. He set the child down gently, and the boy immediately clung to his mother's side. She knelt beside her son, brushing dirt from his hair. For the first time, the soldier saw her shoulders relax slightly. "You saved him," she said quietly. Her eyes were bright, reflecting the dim light from the crack in the wall. "In my people's way, that means you are bound to us, to me." Her voice carried no threat, only a strange certainty that left him silent for a moment. Before he could answer, a sharp noise echoed from outside. The soldier was on his feet instantly, rifle raised. The woman pulled the child behind her, her cat-like ears angling toward the sound. Heavy boots approached the shelter, and shadows shifted just beyond the entrance. He positioned himself between them and the door, ready for whatever came next. The first figure stepped into view, wearing armor unlike the others they had seen. This one bore markings of rank and authority. The soldier's finger tightened on the trigger, but the woman's hand touched his arm. "Not enemy," she said firmly. "Friend if we can make him listen." Her tone suggested that what happened next could decide all their fates. The armored figure stopped just outside the entrance, his visor reflecting the dim light that leaked through the cracks. The soldier kept his rifle up, watching for any sudden movement. The alien mother stepped forward slightly, her hand still resting on his arm to keep him from firing. Her voice was calm but carried an edge of warning as she spoke to the newcomer in her own language. The man in armor tilted his head, listening. His weapon stayed lowered, but his posture was tense. He looked at the child, then at the soldier, and finally back at the mother. His words came slowly, almost hesitant. The soldier could not understand the language, but he could read the tone. It was a mix of disbelief and caution, as if the man could not accept what he was seeing. The mother's response was firm. She gestured toward the soldier and the child, her cat-like ears flicking as she spoke. The soldier watched closely, his fingers still resting on the trigger. The boy peeked from behind his mother, his wide eyes fixed on the newcomer. The air inside the shelter felt heavy, the kind of stillness that came right before something either broke or healed. After a long moment, the armored man slowly reached up and removed his helmet. His face was lined with fatigue and streaked with dirt, but his eyes were sharp. He stepped closer, speaking in halting human words. "You protect him, why?" His question was not hostile, only puzzled. The soldier's reply was short. "Because no one else would." The man studied him in silence before glancing back at the mother. The mother placed a hand on her son's shoulder, then spoke quietly to the man. Her voice had lost its sharpness now, replaced by something softer. The man nodded once, then looked at the soldier again. "If you trust her, then I will trust you," he said slowly. The soldier gave a short nod in return, lowering his weapon just slightly but keeping his stance ready. The man explained in a mix of alien and human speech that a safe path out of the city existed, but it was guarded. They would need to move under the cover of night, using the ruins to hide their approach. The mother listened intently, her expression tightening at certain details. The soldier knew she was weighing every risk against the safety of her child. When the man left to prepare, the shelter felt quieter, though the distant hum of battle still reached their ears. The soldier leaned back against the wall, his eyes scanning the shadows. The mother sat beside her son, holding him close. After a few minutes, she looked at the soldier and spoke softly. "You could leave, but you stay." He met her gaze without hesitation. "I stay because it's the right thing." Her lips curved into a faint, almost unnoticeable smile. As night fell, they stepped out into the ruined streets. The air was cooler now, and the fires in the distance burned lower. The man in armor led the way, his movements silent despite his heavy gear. The mother walked close to the soldier, her hair brushing against him again, shielding him from the eyes of anyone watching from above. The boy stayed between them, his small steps quick to keep up. They moved through narrow alleys and over crumbling rooftops, avoiding open ground. Twice they stopped as patrols passed nearby, their weapons glowing faintly in the dark. Each time, the soldier kept his body between the child and danger. The mother's hand would lightly touch his back, a silent gesture of thanks before they moved again. At last they reached a shattered bridge that crossed a deep trench. On the far side, dim lights marked the edge of safer territory. The man in armor signaled for them to wait while he scouted ahead. The soldier kept watch, his rifle ready. The mother knelt beside her son, whispering something that made the boy nod with quiet determination. The soldier watched them for a moment, then turned his eyes back to the dark ahead, knowing that getting across would be the hardest part yet. The soldier's eyes scanned the shadows across the bridge. The far side looked quiet, but he knew better than to trust silence in a war zone. The man in armor moved like a ghost, stepping around debris without a sound. The mother stood close behind the soldier, her son gripping her hand tightly. The glow of distant fires flickered on their faces, reminding them that danger was never far. When the scout returned, his expression was serious. 2 guards, he said in his mixed speech, armed distracted. The soldier gave a short nod. They had a chance, but it would be risky. The mother's ears twitched as she listened, her gaze fixed on the dark path ahead. She glanced at the soldier, as if silently asking if he was ready. He gave her the smallest of nods in return. They moved out together, keeping low as they crossed the broken remains of the bridge. Parts of the structure crumbled under their boots, sending small stones into the trench below. The sound seemed too loud in the still night, and the soldier's muscles tensed with every step. The child stayed close between them, his small footsteps matching their pace with surprising steadiness. Halfway across, a sudden noise made the soldier freeze. One of the guards on the far side had turned, scanning the bridge with a narrow beam of light. The soldier's hand tightened on his weapon, ready to fire if necessary. The mother's hand brushed against his arm, a quiet reminder to wait. The beam passed over them without stopping, and the guard turned away again. Only then did they move forward. When they reached the far side, the scout signaled for them to follow him down a narrow alley. The soldier kept his rifle ready, every sense alert. The mother walked just behind him, her hair occasionally brushing against his shoulder as if shielding him from view. The child's breathing was steady now, though his small hands still clung to her tightly. They passed through several back streets, the scout leading them with precision. Twice they had to stop as groups of armed figures passed nearby, their heavy boots echoing through the ruins. The soldier positioned himself so the mother and child were always behind his armor. The mother would glance at him during these moments, her eyes showing both gratitude and something unspoken. Finally, they reached a large cracked wall with a hidden doorway built into it. The scout pushed it open, revealing a narrow tunnel that led downward. The air inside was cooler and smelled faintly of stone and earth. The soldier motioned for the mother and child to go first, then followed closely, his rifle still in his hands. The scout closed the door behind them, sealing out the dim light of the street. The tunnel twisted and turned before opening into a small underground chamber. Several alien figures were waiting there, their faces tense but their weapons lowered. They exchanged quick words with the mother, and their expressions softened when they saw the child. One older alien stepped forward and touched the boy's head gently, as if offering a blessing. The soldier stood a step back, watching carefully. The mother turned to him then, her expression calm but intense. "This place safe," she said, "because of you." Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried weight. The soldier gave a small nod, but said nothing. He knew safety was never guaranteed in war. Still, he allowed himself a moment to lower his weapon fully for the first time since they had met. The scout spoke again, this time in the soldier's language. "You are welcome here, but the fight is not over. They will come for him again." The soldier looked at the boy, who was now leaning against his mother, half asleep. He felt a knot tighten in his chest. He had not come here to fight for someone else's war, yet somehow it no longer felt like someone else's problem. The underground chamber was quiet except for the faint hum of machinery somewhere deeper inside. The soldier stood near the entrance, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. The mother sat on a low bench with her son leaning against her, his small hands curled into her clothing. For the first time since they met, There was no immediate gunfire or shouting, but the tension in the air was still there. Several of the aliens in the chamber spoke in low voices, glancing at the soldier from time to time. Their expressions were not hostile, but they were cautious. The mother seemed to sense this and spoke to them firmly, her tone leaving no room for argument. Slowly their posture eased, though their eyes stayed sharp. The soldier knew trust was earned slowly in places like this. He walked over to the mother and crouched down beside her. "How long will this place stay safe?" he asked. She shook her head slightly. "Not long," she admitted. "They have resources. They will search every hiding place." Her ears flicked as if catching sounds only she could hear. "We must move before they close in." Her voice carried a certainty that left no room for comfort. The scout from earlier stepped into the chamber, his armor still carrying dust from the streets above. He spoke quickly in their language, his gestures sharp. The mother's eyes narrowed and she rose to her feet, taking her son's hand. She turned to the soldier and translated. "They found our trail. We must leave now." The soldier nodded once, already preparing his weapon. They left the chamber through a narrow tunnel on the far side. The air grew colder as they moved, and the sound of their footsteps echoed off the stone walls. The child stayed close to his mother, but his eyes no longer looked afraid. The soldier noticed the change, wondering if it came from her presence, or from knowing he would protect them no matter what. Either way, it gave the boy a quiet strength. When they emerged from the tunnel, they found themselves in the outskirts of the ruined city. The fires were distant now, but the night air carried the smell of smoke and metal. The soldier took point, scanning the path ahead. The mother stayed close behind him, her hair once again brushing against him as they moved. He noticed how it shielded him from view each time they passed open ground. They moved quickly through the dark, avoiding any lit streets. Twice they saw patrols in the distance, their glowing weapons cutting through the night. The soldier led them through a collapsed building to avoid being seen. Inside, the dust hung thick in the air, and every step made the old floor groan. The child stayed silent, his small steps careful, as if he understood the danger perfectly. The mother paused suddenly, her ears turning toward a faint sound ahead. She signaled for them to stop, then moved a step forward to listen. The soldier stayed ready, his rifle aimed at the narrow exit. A faint mechanical hum grew louder, followed by the slow crunch of metal on stone. Whatever it was getting closer, and it was not moving like infantry. The first thing they saw was the glint of metal under the moonlight. A machine, tall and heavy, stepped into view. Its sensors swept the ground, glowing faintly red. The soldier pulled the mother and child back into the shadows, his heart pounding. If the machine detected them, there would be no outrunning it. He watched its slow, deliberate movements, waiting for the right moment. When it turned away, scanning another section of the ruins, the scout motioned for them to move. They slipped past silently, keeping to the deepest shadows. The machine's heavy steps faded into the distance, but the soldier knew it was only a matter of time before something else found them. The mother's hand brushed against his as they walked, a silent reminder that their fight was not over yet. The ruined streets ahead were uneven, littered with fragments of stone and twisted metal. The soldier moved first, his rifle ready, eyes scanning every shadow. The mother followed close behind, her son between them, small fingers holding tightly to her hand. The night air was cold against their skin, but the sound of distant patrols kept them moving quickly. The scout led them through a series of collapsed buildings, each turn chosen to avoid open ground. The smell of ash grew stronger the farther they went, and in the distance, faint orange light flickered like warning beacons. The soldier kept his steps silent, his senses sharp. The mother's hair shifted in the breeze, brushing against him now and then, still shielding his profile from any who might be watching from above. They paused in the shadow of a half-destroyed tower. From here, the soldier could see the outer wall of the enemy-controlled zone. It was tall and reinforced, guarded by figures whose armor caught the faint moonlight. Beyond that wall was their chance at true safety, but the path to reach it was dangerous. The mother's gaze followed his, and she nodded once. Understanding the risk, the scout crouched beside them, pointing toward a narrow drainage tunnel that led under the wall. It was half-collapsed but still open enough for them to pass. The soldier studied it, noting the debris and potential choke points. "If they catch us in there, we're trapped," he murmured. The mother's response was steady. "If we stay here, they will catch us anyway." Her calmness was sharper than fear. They moved toward the tunnel in silence, staying low. The ground was damp under their boots, and the air smelled of stagnant water. The soldier entered first, his weapon raised, every step cautious. The mother and child followed, her free hand brushing the wall for balance. The faint sound of dripping water echoed ahead, masking their movements as they advanced. Halfway through, a sharp metallic clang echoed from behind them. The soldier spun, weapon ready, but the scout motioned for silence. A patrol had entered the tunnel from the other side, their faint voices carrying through the dark. The mother pulled her son close, covering his ears. The soldier waited, muscles tense, ready to act if they came too close. The voices grew louder for a moment, then faded as the patrol moved past an intersecting passage. The soldier released a slow breath, signaling for them to keep moving. The tunnel narrowed before opening into a wider space beneath the wall. Here, the ceiling was low, and faint light leaked through the cracks above. The scout signaled for them to hurry, aware that they had only a short window. They emerged into the open on the far side of the wall. The air was cooler here, and the distant sounds of battle were muffled. A dark tree line lay ahead, offering cover if they could reach it. The soldier scanned the area, spotting no immediate threats, but he knew better than to relax. The mother stepped up beside him, her son still clutching her tightly. As they moved toward the trees, the faint hum of engines reached their ears. The soldier glanced back to see armored vehicles moving along the wall, their searchlights sweeping across the ground. One beam passed dangerously close to their position, and they dropped low behind a ridge of broken stone. The mother's hand found his, gripping it for a brief moment before letting go. When the lights passed, they ran for the tree line, their steps quick but controlled. The shadows under the branches swallowed them, hiding their movements from the wall. The soldier could feel the tension easing slightly, but the mother's expression told him she would not believe they were safe until they were far from here. In that moment, he knew their journey was not just about survival anymore, but about the bond they had built through every step of danger. The forest was silent except for the soft rustle of leaves underfoot. The soldier led the way, his rifle ready, scanning the dark for any sign of pursuit. The mother followed close behind, her son in her arms, his head resting against her shoulder. The moonlight filtered through the branches, casting shifting patterns across their path. The scout moved ahead to check the route, disappearing into the shadows between the trees. The soldier could still feel the tension in his chest, the kind that came from too many close calls in one night. The mother's steps were light, despite the weight she carried, her gaze fixed on him whenever he looked back. It was a silent reassurance that they were still together and still moving forward. They reached a small clearing where the trees opened to reveal a stream. The water glimmered in the moonlight, and for a moment, it felt like the war was far away. The child stirred, lifting his head to look around. His small voice broke the quiet as he whispered to his mother, and she smiled faintly, smoothing his hair before meeting the soldier's eyes. The scout returned, signaling that they were close to a hidden outpost. It was a safe zone, one where the mother's people could regroup without fear of immediate attack. The soldier nodded, feeling the weight of the mission ease slightly. They moved on, crossing the stream carefully to keep their noise low. The cold water soaked his boots, but he didn't slow down. When they reached the outpost, it was smaller than he expected, just a few camouflage structures tucked deep into the forest. Guards stepped forward, but lowered their weapons when they saw the mother. She spoke to them quickly in her language, and their expression softened. One of them stepped aside, allowing the group to enter the safety of the camp. Inside there were small fires for warmth and food, and the smell of cooked grain filled the air. The mother set her son down, and he ran to greet other children nearby. She turned back to the soldier, her eyes bright despite the dirt and fatigue on her face. "You saved him," she said simply. "And you saved me." Her voice was steady, but there was something deeper behind it. The scout approached the soldier with a pack of supplies. "You can stay here," he offered. "You fought for us when you had no reason to. That makes you one of us." The soldier hesitated, his thoughts drifting back to his original orders, to the war he was meant to be fighting. But as he looked at the mother and her son, he realized his choice had already been made. The mother stepped closer, her hair falling forward so that it brushed against him, just as it had before. "In my people's way," she said softly, "when life is saved, a bond is made. Stronger than war, stronger than fear." Her words carried no demand, only truth. The soldier met her gaze and saw no doubt in her eyes, only trust in something warmer. He reached out, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Then the bond stands," he said. Her smile was small but real, and for the first time, he saw her shoulders relax fully. Around them, the camp's quiet hum continued, but the world felt different now. It felt like more than survival. It felt like the start of something worth protecting. As the night deepened, the soldier stood watch at the edge of the camp. The forest stretched out before him, dark and full of unseen dangers, but he no longer felt alone. Behind him, the mother and child slept in safety, their breathing soft in the night air. He knew the war was not over, but he also knew that whatever came next, he would face it with them at his side.